Hi, I'm Emma Sutherland, clinical naturopath, author, mum, and your host. With over 20 years in clinical practice, I've helped thousands of women and their families transform their health using evidence based integrative strategies. I am deeply passionate about making science simple and actionable so you feel confident and empowered in your health decisions. This channel is your go to for trusted insights, expert conversations, and practical tools that fuel your real life wellness. Today, we're diving into a hot topic that so many of you ask me about: why you might be training hard, staying consistent, and still not seeing the results that you want. Spoiler alert, it's usually a nutrition problem. To unpack this, I'm joined by the incredible Kat Stace, strength coach, athlete, and women's health advocate. Kat is passionate about helping women fuel properly, get stronger, and break free from the old cycle of overtraining and undereating. We'll be talking about protein, fueling for performance, the trap of good weekdays and blowout weekends, and Kat's own personal journey of underfueling and how she turned it around. If you've ever felt stuck in your training results, this episode is going to give you clarity and tools to move forward. Kat, welcome so much to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited. Excited to see you. It's been a long time.
It's so good to see you again. Tell us what you do now, because I knew you from a previous role, but tell us what you do now. You've had a whole evolution since I saw you last.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we saw each other last, that was when I was working for Metagenics, a practitioner only supplement company. And then I left that to start my own personal training business. So I went and I did my certificate. So my Cert 3, Cert 4 personal training. I was working in a commercial gym in Sydney for a few years doing that, building up my brand, building up my business. And then it was got through COVID. Actually, I started my business when all the gyms shut down.
Oh,
I got through that. And I was actually really blessed. I was lucky that I had a business. The business was my control then. I could do what I wanted in that business, and I could either sit back during that time or I could find ways to make it work and build. And I was able to still build a really healthy business during lockdowns over those 2 years. And then, so did my time on the floor, did that long hours on the floor. And it was probably about 3 years ago. That's when I made the decision to pretty much completely move my business online. So now I'm an online strength and conditioning coach, nutritionist, sports nutritionist. And like, it's just opened up a whole new, literally world for me. So I now coach people all around Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Great Britain. And that's where I'm at now. So with my business, I would say 60-70% of my business, I coach a lot of paddlers. Being an ex-paddler myself, the direction it took me, I was never really advertising my services to coach paddlers, but it just drew me into that because I had that experience representing Australia and then just knowing how to train for the sport. Other than that, yeah, I just work with clients with body composition, fat loss, building muscle, that sort of thing. So that's what I've been doing since I last saw you in your clinic.
yeah. And it makes complete sense to me that your two worlds came together in such a beautiful way. So the expertise that you built as a professional paddler then married with all of that incredible information around nutrition and then the fitness side of things, like that is your kind of genius spot when you combine those two together. So it really makes sense to me that you've landed in that way.
And I think as well, like, it comes with trust. So someone who's done it, who knows what it feels like, who knows what it takes for the training, the expectations, the highs, the lows, family commitments, social commitments, it all ties in. So someone who's done that, I know how to program for it as well to meet them where they're at. They still have a full-time job. They still have family, kids. They're still expected to get out into the gym, get out on the water, tick the boxes. So I think having done all that, I've built a lot of trust in the paddling community to do all that programming and nutrition protocols. And I've done the mistakes with nutrition myself. So I try to protect a lot of my clients from making the same mistakes as I have in the past. So
Yeah.
I was pretty terrible at it prior.
Yeah. Well, what I love is that authenticity that you have. And you've talked about your own experience with overtraining and underfueling. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, what you learned through that?
Yeah, so the overtraining and underfueling as well. So with my sporting history, before I was a paddler, I was doing a lot of endurance stuff like marathons, half Ironmans, triathlons. And that was before I knew anything about nutrition, particularly sports nutrition. And that was when I was going through that phase where I felt that being smaller meant better performance as well. Because sometimes I was afraid to eat. I didn't know how to eat for my performance. Now, endurance, like some of these training sessions or even races, like are 6 hours long, I just didn't have the knowledge to properly know how to fuel for that. I came from being a naturopath. I was entering into this mindset where everything had to be natural, no processed foods, no sugars, nothing. Created a lot of hurdles for me trying to get through these longer training sessions without the fuel, without the carbohydrates, without the glucose to properly fuel these sessions. And you wonder why you're not getting better. You wonder why you're not getting faster. Body composition hasn't changed. I'm tired. I'm irritable. I'm moody. All of that. Cravings through the roof. I simply didn't know what I was doing. There's a big difference, between nutrition for health, which we talk about a lot, which you talk about a lot, coming back to those naturopathic days. But there's a difference between nutrition for health and nutrition for performance. And that's where the sports performance comes in. And so once I did my sports nutrition accreditation, like that's when things like light bulb moments as well. Like, this is why X, Y, and Z was happening to me. I just wasn't fueling properly. And on top of that, just the overtraining as well. Thinking more is better. And yeah, it wasn't until I just educated myself. That's when I realized and started fueling myself. I stopped being scared of carbohydrates. Like even when I was paddling for Australia, like I was still scared of carbohydrates. And I look back and I think like I was a pretty good paddler. Like you have to be if you're representing that at that level. I consider myself pretty good, but I was afraid of carbohydrates. And every month we had to submit our benchmarks, our fitness benchmarks, our gym benchmarks to our head coach. And they never improved. Like it was good enough.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I worked on it so hard. I was pounding in the gym, doing like ticking all the boxes, but never improved. I didn't have the right tools to be able to improve. So now knowing that and doing that, like experiencing it, that I do my hardest and try to educate a lot of my clients, a lot of paddlers around fueling, around their workouts. Don't be scared of carbohydrates, pull back the training. There's a lot of the times when I look at the training that some of these national paddlers have, and they come to me because they're just in a mess. It's just overload. And so that's where I come in and what is the least that we can do and still get the most benefit for you? And I'm still not perfect. It was probably only a few months ago, and you'll see it on my Instagram. Because I film a lot of my content. I film a lot of my lifts. And I was really lucky this day. I was really happy because I was actually filming my session, it was a leg session, and I was underfueled. Just didn't eat. I think I was coaching from my first meal was at 5 a.m. I was coaching to 11 a.m. Went straight into a heavy leg session. My last meal was at 5 a.m. Thinking that I could do a really heavy leg session. And particularly legs lower body takes a lot more energy, a lot of higher energy costs than say just doing a shoulder workout, for example. And I'm pleased that I did it because I filmed all the exercises. And if you go back on my Instagram a few carousels, you'll see it. And then you'll see that I didn't have the energy there. I was irritable. I just couldn't push the weight. And then I filmed the exact same exercises the week after. And you'll see like 22% increase on this weight, a 50% increase on that weight. So same exercises, just better fueling. So that wasn't 3 years ago. That was only like 3 months ago. So I still make mistakes, but we're a human. And so I try to teach my clients that. Like we're never always going to get it right. I still sometimes don't get it right, but I learn from it. And then I try to film it, put it on my socials so people can see, hey, you know what? Kat's not perfect either.
Yeah.
But I learn from it and I do better next time.
And I think you might be talking about elite people, paddlers, people that are doing this a lot more intensely than your average woman. But I hear it all the time. And I actually think that the overtraining, underfueling is very common, particularly in the peri and the menopause space when women have probably put on the 4 or 5 kilos that happens during that life stage, and they are overtraining and underfueling. So do you see that relate across to other women that you train?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, like perimenopause, because I'm starting to see more and more that. Like I see a lot of that coming up on social media at the moment as well, a lot of menopausal content. And I've coached a few perimenopausal, postmenopausal women, and the one thing that I see them trying to do is the exercise more and eat less. And it just backfires and it doesn't work. Chances are, particularly postmenopausal, like they're probably not sleeping well because of hot flushes. So they're getting up. Cortisol's higher than normal. Lifestyle is very different than they were when they were mid-30s. They didn't have the stresses that they did back then. And there's just push, and it just increases your cortisol, stress hormones, depletes your nutrients, thyroid function, and it's just one thing after another. So then when they don't see results, they push more and they restrict, it just backfires. And I see that, like we talk about menopause now, but to be honest, I've seen that from all ages. That whole mentality of I've got to eat less and I've got to move more to get results. And that's what often backfires.
And I think when you think about what happens metabolically when we do that, when we overtrain and underfuel, our brain goes into that stress response, our set point locks in and will keep the weight where it is, and the metabolism slows down, and there's haywire. Like across the board, every organ becomes metabolically stale and challenged in that way.
This is what I try to coach my clients as well. Like the body's very clever and it will do everything that it can do to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So if you're restricting and like that energy, the calories isn't coming in, like it thinks that it's starving. So it does start to shut things down, unlike the organs that aren't necessary. Like, what do we need to keep you alive? What's not so important right now? And it starts to slow that down, particularly like our movement. It's like, okay, we need to slow out this human down to conserve energy. And so that you see that metabolic rate. We fidget less, we exercise less, we subconsciously move less throughout the day because, again, energy's not coming in. Body's thinks, got to save this person. Let's slow everything down. And then it just backfires. And then what I see as well, is then they restrict, and then they'll overeat. They'll binge. And it's just this vicious cycle.
And look, a lot of people think that results come from training hard, but can you explain why nutrition is actually often the driver of results? Because a lot of people have this conception that you just got to train hard.
And the biggest misconception that I see that's out there is this, exactly what you said. Training is important, don't get me wrong, but training is just the stimulus. So it's basically the signal that tells the body, hey, we need to get stronger, we need to build more muscle, we need to adapt, but the actual adaptation happens outside the gym. And that depends on what you're fueling your body with. If you're not eating enough protein, then your body literally doesn't have the building blocks to repair the muscles. If you're not eating enough carbohydrates, then your sessions, you don't have the glucose, the energy to fuel your sessions, and these sessions become lower quality. I've done that.
Yeah.
And then if you're in too big of a calorie deficit, then your hormones start to downregulate and recovery suffers, energy's going down, and then your performance completely tanks. So nutrition doesn't just support the training, it actually dictates whether or not you get results.
I love that. And so people that are watching or listening today, what are some signs that maybe you're working hard, but the nutrition side of things is being sabotaged? What are some things they can keep an eye out for?
The things that I see when I'm coaching, the biggest flags that I see, and they all pretty much happen at once, it's constant soreness. So if I'm having clients that in their weekly check-ins, constantly, they never feel recovered, that's usually a nutrition issue first.
Okay.
There are some aspects as well, like sleep and whatnot, stress, but constant soreness or unexplained soreness, look at the nutrition. The other one is their performance is plateauing. So in the gym, if they aren't increasing over, say, about a month, then we start to look at, do we need a deload, or are you going in fueling yourself? Are you eating enough protein, carbohydrates after your sessions? But also if they're runners, if their pace is the same or they're getting slower, despite putting in all the effort. Always relate it back to nutrition. But also it's the energy, it's the mood swings, it's the irritability, it's cravings, they skyrocket, constantly getting sick as well.
Classic, yes.
And increase of injuries, like just silly injuries as well. But the other one as well is when people are training super hard, but their body composition isn't shifting, isn't changing despite their efforts. So they're not losing fat, they're not increasing muscle. 9 out of 10 times, it's not the training, it's the nutrition.
And in your coaching experience, what are the most common nutrition mistakes that you see people make? What would be your top 4 or 5?
Not eating enough protein, particularly for women, and then they wonder why they're not building muscle.
Yeah.
I'd like to touch more on that in a minute, but the other one is, again, it's cutting calories too low. And I see more in women and men. They too hard, and then they'll crash diet and they'll see some quick results, but then it'll rebound because it's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And then, but the overarching mistake that I see is inconsistency. So people will do it for a couple of days, for a few weeks, and then they fall off. And then they'll restart, and then they'll fall off and they'll restart. So there's this inconsistency, and you'll never actually make results or make progress if you're constantly undoing your own work. So yeah, protein, calories too aggressive. And also I'd actually add in there food guilt. So labeling foods as good as or bad. And that's when I talked about sports nutrition and as opposed to nutrition for health. There's a difference. It's knowing when to use one over the other. But yeah, labeling foods good as bad. I think all foods have its place, even in soul foods, social outcomes. There is a place to have that nice donut with your coffee, your besties every now and again. But yeah, this food guilt often leads to restriction and then an overindulgence.
Yeah, it's that vicious cycle. And the Monday to Friday, I'm really good. And then on my weekends, I blow out. But the polarized swinging effect that I see clinically a lot. And then what about tracking macros? Because I will often ask a patient to track their macros so we can both get an understanding of what's actually going on. But often I get a lot of pushback around tracking. What are your thoughts on tracking macros?
That's how I run my business. So the nutritional side of, so I'm a big advocate for it.
Okay.
And I'll get pushback and I'll get people saying, oh, it's obsessive.
Yeah.
But you can't manage what you haven't tracked.
Yeah.
So, and it's a real eye-opener. I'll get some women who come on board with me and they'll say straight up, I don't want to track.
Okay.
I compromise with them. We compromise. And I say, can you do it for like 5-7 days for me? That's it. Just so I can see some gaps or some limitations or just more awareness around any nutritional deficiencies or gaps, as I said. The one thing that I see is protein. They're just not hitting protein. And I often see 60 grams of protein throughout their day, 60 to 80 if I'm lucky.
So this is the contentious part that I really wanted to pick your brains on. I want to pick your brains on a lot. But on the protein side of things, what do you get women to aim for? Is it a particular amount of protein per kilo of body weight? Is it depending on exercise load? Tell us more around how much protein and how do we work out what we need?
For the general person who isn't sedentary, but they're active, for men and women, we want to aim around at a minimum about 1.6. You could even go down to 1.4, but I like to keep it high, about 1.6 to 2.2 at the higher end of protein per kilo of body weight.
Yeah.
That does change depending on if you are in a slight calorie surplus. So if I have my clients in a bulking, I prefer a building phase in their training. I tend to lower their protein and increase carbs and fats. And I do that because protein is very satiating. As someone is trying to consume more calories, sometimes they find it difficult because, as I said, the protein can be quite filling and they struggle to get the calories. So I'll lower the protein and increase the calories from carbs and fats. Then if they're in a calorie deficit, then that's when protein becomes really important. So that's when I'll aim for the higher end, that 2 to 2.2 kilo of protein per kilo of body weight. That allows us to preserve our muscle mass that we're trying to build and save as much as we can whilst we're in the gym. during that calorie deficit phase. So we're holding on to muscle by having a lot of it, preserving it whilst we're in this fat loss phase. Not only that, again, protein is satiating. So whilst we've got less energy coming in, having that protein with each meal in our snack helps to negate feeling hungry throughout the day. Protein also has what's called a higher thermic effect of food. So it actually costs more energy to digest protein. So we're burning more calories when we're eating protein as well. But to go back to your question, 1.6 to 2.2, which works out to be around about 100 grams to 120 grams of protein, give or take. But as a starting point, Em, for my clients, particularly women, if I see that they're only consuming 60 to 80 grams of protein.
I would have to say that's kind of bang on where most of my patients, when they come in to see me, what they're at, and they think that's okay, that's their normal. So this is super common that women are under eating protein for their personal requirements.
Absolutely. And so if I can get them to at least bring that up to 100, don't even worry about 130 or 140 by doing the maths, because sometimes the math's there, but you've still got to coach the individual. So that's when I'm like, you know what, let's try and get at least 100 grams of protein in that day. Now, it's all well and good to have 100 grams of protein or 120 or 130 grams of protein, but we need to space that out throughout the day, Em. So muscle protein synthesis works best when it's spaced out throughout the day, not in one lump sum. It's not to say that protein, if you get 60, there's not too many occasions where a woman would get 60 grams of protein in one meal. But if we were, this is where I see it happens in intermittent fasting. People think, I'm going to start intermittent fasting because I'm going to lose weight that way.
Yes.
It narrows the feeding window.
Yes.
But it also narrows the window that you pulse muscle protein synthesis. And what I mean by that is by having 20 to 40 grams of protein every 3 hours, because this, and you got to think of it as pulsing. So you're basically pulsing, and it's mainly leucine. We want to pulse leucine with the amino acid. And that is the main amino acid that is needed for this muscle protein synthesis. It's a fancy way of saying muscle growth. Got to spread the feedings out around 20 to 40 grams per meal and your snacks, rather than one lump sum.
I love that you brought this up, because this is a common pattern that I see. A woman has put on a bit of weight, she starts training, then she starts cutting calories, and then she goes, oh, I'm just going to intermittent fast and I'm just going to have 2 meals a day. This is so very common. And what you're saying is that's almost the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We should be eating steady intake of 20 to 40 grams of protein every 3 to 4 hours. So i.e. not intermittent fasting, not overtraining, and not under eating. So often when women are doing their own intermittent fasting, i.e. they haven't sought any sort of professional opinion for their own personalized kind of situation, they're actually eating maybe 1,000 calories. And then every third day they'll binge and have 3,000 calories. So what I really want to identify here for the women that are listening or watching is that we really need to undo this myth of that's the way that you do it.
Correct. And I guess the more we talk about this as well and like get it out, that's why we're saying some things seem obvious to us because we know it. We talk about it to our clients, but we need to get that message out that there are, do you know what, the basics work? And that's the thing. People try to overcomplicate things. And they jump onto one diet. They jump onto something else. They'll jump on the keto. They jump on intermittent fasting. They all work because it's narrowing the window or it's taking out a macronutrient, but it's reducing calories. If fat loss is what you want, it's just a reduction of overall calories within the day or within the week. I actually go for the week. It's not the intermittent fasting that's working. It's not the ketogenic diet that's working. It's the reduction in overall calories over a period of 1, 2, 3 weeks. You know what? I think it comes down to social media influencers. There's a red flag that I always look at on social media influencers is when they say, this is the best X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, there is no one way.
There's no one way. There's no one way.
Yeah.
People just need to stick to the basics. The basics work.
I'd love your opinion from the research I've done in relation to the set point and how our body and brain works really hard to stay at a certain weight unless it feels safe to move that weight. I read that it's around 15% drop in calories before that set point will kick in and feel like it's unsafe move to go any lower in calories. And I'd love your opinion on that. And secondly, if it's only 15%, I see mostly women dropping their calories 30, 35%. And then I really feel like their set point says, no, that's not safe. We are going to keep your weight up and slow your metabolism. So what's that kind of range that you feel from your experience is a safe or an okay way to put the calories down without being so aggressive that the set point kicks in and slows metabolism? Is there a guideline you can give us?
It's the person in front of you, and it depends on what works for me, won't work for you, it won't work for someone else. I don't have kids. I've got a pretty stress-free life. I sleep well. I have the time to cook all my food. I've got a job that allows me to train whenever I want to train, go to bed whenever I want to go to bed, get up whenever I want to get up. So setting my calories as opposed to someone else's calories, it's so individual.
Yeah.
When I set calories for my clients, I don't do percentages. Like I look at their environment,
Yep.
their training as well. So I have a fairly good idea on their training, what they're doing. Also their just daily movement. So what's their job? Do they have a physical job? Do they have a sit down job like me most of the time?
Yeah.
And then what I try to do from there is I actually set my clients' calories on the higher end. I try to get my clients to eat as much as they can and still get results.
Yeah.
The problem that I see when coaches cut calories way too high and too fast, you've got nowhere else to go from.
No.
So if I was to put someone on a 1,300 calorie diet, at some stage, they're going to adapt to that.
Yes.
The body's now smaller. So a smaller body, your metabolism, your BMR starts to reduce.
Yeah.
Your NEAT starts to reduce.
Yes.
Again, because we've got less calories coming in, so we consciously move less. So what do? We either get your client to exercise more, or take calories off more. So now you're down to 1,200 calories. Like that's enough to feed a toddler. So it's too extreme. You've got nowhere to pull from. You've got nowhere to go from there. So the way that I coach is let's just reduce it by even 200 calories a day, because that adds up over a period of a week or two. And then I assess after 2 weeks, if I know that they're ticking all the boxes, then if we're not moving, the scale weight hasn't gone down, then I might take off another 100. But yeah, the way that I coach, the more I can get my clients to eat, still get body composition goals, the better.
Love that. It's so empowering. For somebody that just feels really stuck right now, maybe they're training hard, they're not seeing the results, what are the first 2 or 3 nutrition habits you'd have them focus on? Because what I love to focus on is habits, because consistency breeds success, as you well know and just talk about a lot. So what are a couple of nutrition habits that people can start implementing?
First thing, get your protein in. So in regards to nutrition, if you're not seeing results, have a look at your protein. Usually the first thing that's holding people back from body composition results.
Okay.
And just try to get them to build like every meal around a protein source. What I notice the most is breakfast is really insufficient in protein. They'll have the avocado, that classic Sydney eastern suburbs, going out for the avo and on toast with feta. There's barely any protein in that. Really high fat, really high calorie. But if you hit your protein target consistently, your recovery, your body composition will both improve. Then the next one, it's got to be protein. And then you've got to think calorie awareness as well. And that's why I get my clients to track. But it doesn't mean weighing and tracking everything forever.
Yeah.
You need to have some sort of level of awareness around how much you're actually eating. And a lot of people actually underestimate their calorie intake.
Well, the research is very clear on that, isn't it, Kat? That people overestimate the amount of exercise they do and underestimate the amount of food they eat. It is well and truly proven. So another reason that tracking can be insightful.
And the problem, so they underestimate the energy that's coming in through calories, and then the calories that they're expending in the gym or that 1 hour workout, it's minimal. And look, data is great. And when I talk about data, I'm talking about Fitbit, Garmin watches, that sort of thing. They're a great tool to have, and I do use them for my clients. But some clients can get too hung up on calories burn in a workout, and it's just not accurate. And the calories that are shown on these wearables, it's not accurate at all. And it's been shown that time and time again. So then people will say, well, why do they have it? They have it because people
People want it.
people want it. That's exactly what it comes down to. So you think if you're a company, if you're a developer of a new wearable, and if you calories burn aren't accurate, so I'm not going to put it in as a feature, you're not going to sell many of those watches because people want it.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but it's true. We need to steer people away from basing their energy needs and their calorie output, their energy output by data on the wearables, because it's just, there's a huge mismatch. Definitely, it's a protein, get them to track, even if it's for 5 to 7 days. It's a massive awareness for my clients. And then particularly portion sizes. And then the third one is you've got to fuel your sessions. So even a small session, 30, 60 minutes before your training, if you haven't had a meal 2 hours prior, so this is a caveat, like if you've had a good meal 2 hours prior, you don't need a pre-workout snack. Like that 2-hour meal prior, that's enough. If you've had carbohydrates and protein, a little bit of fat, that's enough. If you haven't had time to have that 2 hours prior, so it could be first thing in the morning, you've woken up, you can't get a meal in, that's when something like a banana, bread, and some jam, so that really quick digesting carbohydrate source, or some dates. So having that can completely change the quality of your session.
Yeah.
So if people can master those 3 things, they'll start to see results.
So protein, tracking to gain awareness, and fueling for your workouts. Perfect. And then women are busy. They've got kids or big jobs or whatever it might be. What's one piece of advice you'd give to women about trying to balance all of that? I personally believe there is no such thing as balance, so that's an illusion. But what would your advice be if a woman says to you, but I'm just too busy, like I don't know how I can do that?
And we've all heard it, guys. It's a common comment that we all hear. Simple, and you've got to have structure. So if you don't have structure, your whole week will fall to bits. You don't need to overcomplicate things with fancy meals or extreme diets. You don't need to be trying to Gordon Ramsay it in the kitchen. What you need are habits that can sustain you in a busy life. So for example, I keep my meals on rotation all week. I have the same breakfast, the same lunches, and a couple of different options for dinner. And then the following week, I'd mix it up. So then I'll have different breakfasts, but all week, a different selection of lunches, but I have it all week, and then dinner options. And I make the time. So I allow Sundays to do some meal prep. So I know exactly what I'm eating Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll prep again Thursday, Friday. And it takes the decision fatigue away as well.
Yeah.
And I've read somewhere that I think we make 35,000 decisions a day.
Blows my mind, but I can understand why
Yeah.
all feel so overwhelmed a lot of the time.
100%. So that's
Yeah.
everything from as soon as we wake up, we're making decisions. What am I going to eat this morning? What am I going to wear? What am I going to say to this person? So decision fatigue is real. It's not spoken enough. And the more decision fatigue we have, that's when, particularly by the end of the day, you've had a full day at work, you get home and you just think, I can't be bothered with dinner. I'm just going to get Uber Eats, or I'm going to get this, or I'm not going to put any attention on my nutrition here because I'm tired. And that's this decision fatigue coming in.
Yeah.
So preparation, keep it simple, keep it structured.
Yeah.
Also, give yourself permission to not be perfect.
Yeah.
Too many women beat themselves up if they miss a session or they eat something off plan. There's this mentality like, if I can't be perfect, then I can't do it at all. But
And that failure, I hear it from women. They say, I failed again. They get the whip out, and it's just terrible for their self-talk and the way we perceive ourselves.
progress is built on consistency, not perfection. And if you hit your habits 80% of the time, that's what delivers results. And I think as well, coming back to your question about balance, you've got to remember, like, why are you doing it? Fitness and nutrition, it should be adding to your life, not taking away from it. So if it's taking it away, then you need to stop and you need to relook at things. You need to relook at your training. You need to relook at nutrition.
And I love that advice. And a little anecdote, There's a reason Steve Jobs always wore a black polo top, right? And the reason was because he didn't want to have to decide what he was needing to wear each day. So he took the decision making out of it. And I have to say for myself, what I find working from the nutrition angle is meal prep. I've got a blackboard in the kitchen here and I write on there what we're having for dinner every night so I don't get 20 questions every day. What's for dinner, Mum? But also so that I know exactly what we're having. And then we have leftovers for lunch every day, so we don't have to think about lunch. And then breakfast is just a rotation of different options depending on the season. So I find taking out that decision fatigue means that we are consistent. Sophia said to me the other day, "Oh, Mum, we haven't had takeaway for ages." And I thought about it and I thought, well, takeaway isn't a bad thing, but it's just because I've been on menu planning and it's on the blackboard of what we have. So it hasn't been a need.
And like psychology says, if something is written down, you're more likely to do it and follow it as well. This is getting like, it's not really nutrition related, but still is related. I run my business and I run a successful business because I know what I'm doing each day. It's already planned. And I do that on a Sunday, or if I don't do it on a Sunday, it's first thing on a Monday. And I've got my notepad and I section it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I write down on the left-hand side, I write down everything that I need to do for that week, everything that needs to get done. Monday's the most important day of the week. Mondays are, for me, what brings money into my business, what keeps this business alive. And it's my clients. So Monday is the day that I do all my client check-ins. It's a non-negotiable. That's what I got to get done. Yeah. So my to-do task on a Monday, I write client check-ins. Once I feel my non-negotiables most important on a Monday, then I filter it and then I go to a Tuesday. So what's the next thing that I need to get done? That's a Tuesday. And then by the time Friday comes, Friday's pretty empty. And it takes that decision of fatigue away, but it also reduces overwhelm. We know we're really busy. We're overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. I don't know where to start. Put it in different days. That way, okay, well, Monday, I've only got 4 tasks that I need to complete it. Tuesday, I've got 3. I know I can get those 3 done. Rather than thinking, here's Monday, I've got 16 things that I need to complete and you don't do any of it. Yeah. And it kind of ties over to how you look after yourself in regards to your nutrition and your training as well. Yeah. And I always say to my clients, you need to schedule your training sessions in as if it's a doctor's appointment. They're non-negotiable. Pop them in your calendar like they're an appointment.
And I found or worked out about myself that I'm terrible. If I have a gym membership and I'm just left to my own devices, I'm terrible. But if I have a class that I need to book into and there's some people going to the same gym, doing the same class that I really have a good laugh with, I will turn up every single time. So I book myself into a 6 a.m. class Monday to Friday because I know that I'm playing to my strengths and it's committed and it's done. So I think it's also finding the things that work for you according to how you operate from that angle.
And you got the accountability of everyone else there. You keep showing up and all of a sudden M doesn't show up to that class. Where's M?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, this still going on with the decision fatigue. What gets you up and what locks you into that session is that the accountability, knowing that you're showing up for other people. There's other people in that community. And so for other people, like I coach people, they know what they're doing. I've got some guys that they've been in the gym, they know what they're doing. Even women, but they hire me. I'm there in their corner because they're like, Kat, I know that you're there for the days that I don't want to show up. I know what is that accountability. I've got my own coach. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to set my macros. I know how to do my training. But getting an external coach or getting outside help, it takes the decision fatigue away from me. So I know once I've put all my energy into my clients, I've still got energy for myself. And when that I can just go into the gym, my coach has set my plan, I do it, I tick it off. Accountability is a big thing. So if people are stuck, get a coach. They're in your corner. It's an investment. They can be pricey, but what's the cost of not doing your nutrition or fitness? That's an early retirement in a retirement village. And that's not the investment that I'd like to make. But
exactly.
If someone is struggling, get a coach that can help you guide through this.
Yeah, perfect. And Kat, coming to that, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Instagram. I think my Instagram, Cat Athletic, is probably the best way to come and give me a follow, send me a message. I reply to all my messages. It's me. It's not a robot. Yeah, send me over there, or they can just find me on my Facebook page, Katrina Stace. This is my personal page. But either jump over there if they've got any questions. Like, I'm more than happy to help people just to get them started. Free content, free advice. Send me a message. I quite often will do a ask me question on my stories, and people are really loving them. For one, they get to know me and know, like, and trust me a little bit more. But like, someone might ask a question that someone else is thinking as well and just don't know how to ask it. So jump on there and give me a follow, and hopefully you'll learn something.
Well, we'll pop links to your Instagram in the show notes below. But Kat, thank you for your words of wisdom today and sharing all of that experience. I really appreciate your time.
It's been fun. Thanks so much for having me, Em.
What an amazing conversation with Kat. I loved how she broke down the importance of fueling properly, not just for physical results, but for energy, recovery, and confidence too. If you're listening right now and thinking, that's me, I'm training hard but not seeing results, then take Kat's advice. Start with the basics. Prioritize your protein, fuel your training, and stay consistent, not just Monday to Friday, but across the whole week. Thanks for being with me today. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, check out the links in the show notes for more health empowering information. Please feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below.